It's gonna be May. It's the 13th of May, like Justin Timberlake said. And it's episode 299 of the Should I Play This Game podcast. Graham Banks.
How are you?
Yeah, all right, it's all right.
Who are you?
I'm fucking the ginger.
Okay.
Wait, that came out wrong. I'm not fucking a ginger. I am. Man. Good thing we don't get monetized because I would have ruined that already. There's a few different musical different interpolations where the word me gets pronounced as May. And it's quite funny. Like in sync with the one I started with. And Korn has one too, where it's like something takes a part of May. And I think that's funny.
Okay.
Anyway. That's the right response.
I think your humour and our humour are very, 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 very different.
I like the funny. Yeah. I've said it on a couple of episodes of Friday Night Fun. I am sitting in front of a nice new fancy monitor. My OLED rocked up. And it's very nice and it's very fancy. Looks very pretty, Graham.
I'll take your word for it, because considering we can't actually
And the box
see
is still behind me.
Okay.
What?
We can't actually see it, so I'll just take your word for it.
Yeah, I know. That's the dumb part. It's like, man, this thing looks great. But no one can see it, so everyone just has to believe me. So, we got games to talk about.
We do.
We got the games of May to talk about.
Yes, we do.
Yes, the games of May to talk. I had to think about that for a second. And we've actually, I don't want to stop any presses. We've got news.
We got some news, yes.
We do have some news.
So news into an industry discussion is probably the way to describe it, not a heavy news.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to take some news items to then have a deeper discussion about how fucked the current
Man, what the fuck?
the current gaming industry happens to be for people like us who just like to observe it from a distance. But anyway.
The conversation just basically boils down to, man, what the fuck?
Yeah, basically.
We should make that the title.
Wish we could.
Yeah, fucking A. Anyway, how's about we don't mess around too much longer?
Mm-hmm.
Games. Boom. Is there like an explosion transition?
Not that I know. No, I don't think so.
Okay, fair enough.
Not that I've got time to look at.
Yeah, good point.
All right, so I've still played Horizon. I'll get very quick because a lot of my games are repeats. There is one new one at the end. Actually, there's two new ones in this mix. So we've got Horizon Forbidden West. I'm still playing through that and liking it a lot. I've done the first three sort of big missions after you get into the West. Which are get Aether, get Demeter, and get something Poseidon. I think it's called those three.
Oh, so you got those three items.
You've got those three things, which means now I can get rid of that friggin' vine metal flower crap that's everywhere, so I can get past some things that have been held up in fast. That's cool. And I've done a bunch of side missions, so yeah, I'm up already at level 44, 45, I think. The level cap's 50, so I'll get there well and truly before I get to the final story mission. So yeah, once I get to that, I'll just probably rip through the story real quick, which is kind of how I play these games. So yep. We played Satisfactory, still playing it. Episode 19 went up last week, I think it was, week before. Doesn't matter. Recently.
I think it was last week.
I think it was last week, and then I'll probably try and record a 20 during the week. We'll come back to Harold Halibut in a moment. And Manor-Lords. The other repeat game is Lightyear Frontier. That's on your list as well. We've hit what we believe to be, what we think are pretty confident. We've hit the early access content wall. So that new series of digging holes, digging rocks, or whatever it's called, is probably going to be
Picking rocks, digging holes.
Probably going to be on hold for a little bit, which will allow us to probably get back to some other checkouts of games like Manor-Lords. So Manor-Lords is a game that came out on early access at the end of April. It was, at the time, the most wishlist game on Steam ever, I think. If not, it was definitely the highest at that point. It had over... when it released, it was the highest it was the number one at the time. And it was incredibly... it was over 3 million people on people's wish lists, mine included. So yeah, it's now been out for a little bit. It's made by a quote unquote single developer, which is a little bit not quite true. It's obviously a single developer guided by and maintained by a single developer with a bunch of contractors and stuff included. That's sort of. In fact, there was an article I read from on I think it was PC Gamer from another dev saying you really shouldn't say it's a single developer because that's simply not possible, kind of thing. But everyone was saying it was a single
Well, I mean,
developer.
it can be. You can
Not
have games made by one dude.
Not the scope of this game, no.
Not this sort of thing, though.
No, yeah, so yeah, so it's
it's a strategy game. It says right there.
What's that?
It's a strategy game that allows you to experience the life of a medieval lord. It says it on the screen.
Yes.
You got your mouse over the key up.
Yeah, no.
There we go.
Yeah, so it was highest. It was around over 3 million. And it came out, and it's come out relatively well. Like it's been, like from a technical perspective, pretty decent.
Yeah.
I've not heard anything negative about it. I've played it for about an hour.
Neither have I.
About an hour or so this morning. And I'm kind of digging it. I wasn't necessarily on the fence. I mean, I had wishlisted it, so obviously I was interested in it. But I was a bit concerned by some of the early, not the early access, but some of the early talk about it because it had combat in it. So it is a settlement-based city building sim at its core, but they did have in it you can do like military battle stuff, and that turned me off because that doesn't appeal to me at all. But you can actually play in a mode where that stuff is basically completely disabled. So that suits me fine.
What do you mean basically completely disabled?
Well, it doesn't happen anymore. You can't get attacked, and you can build up a militia, but I don't think they're going to attack you. Like there's various win states as well. One of them which is domination of the area, which you would obviously need a military to do that with. But you can just have an end state of none basically. So just keep on playing basically. Which I'm playing it now just to get an idea of what this game is, how you play it, the mechanics of it, etc., etc. It's similar. We probably will do a check out at some point in the next couple of weeks. We've got nothing to play with Lightyear Frontier. We sort of finished that. It's got a similar, like it's got a basic city building. So you're putting down roads and construction. Lumberjack things to build, take wood, and you got that usual stuff. You can build houses. You've got sort of stuff. It's got a bit of the anno stuff in it, where you're trying to make sure that your citizens have got their needs within a radius and within a you've got clothing. Like remember, I know you might recall from that checkout we did, where you've got to make sure they've got clothing and food and all that kind of stuff, and all within a range. So that takes a similar thing from that. I think the thing that's probably make this a little bit unique is that in some of the building mechanics, housing being one of them, you build plots of land rather than just a single plot for a house. You build you basically draw you draw your 4 points of the building footprint, for the whatever term, and if depending how big that is, it'll build 1 or 2 houses on it. So like you're subdividing the area up rather than just saying I want to build a house there, You're saying I want to build housing here, and it'll figure out what it can fit into that spot, sort of thing. Which makes
can you put a massive big square?
I think you probably can. The biggest one I built so far is I built a square that allowed me to build 4 residences in it. So, you can then also dictate which way they face and stuff like that. So it's got a bit more nuance in the development of the building of that sort of stuff. But it's also got the standard mechanics of having to survive and having to have food and stuff like that. So it's got a lot going on, I think. Visually it looks pretty decent, looks really good actually, music wise as well, good. So yeah, it's got a lot going for it, and I'm only just literally an hour into it, so I haven't got a real lot to say beyond what I've said so far. So as I said, I'll keep playing it, and we'll do a check out in a couple of weeks time, and we can maybe show it off then and a bit more, way more than I can here. But in terms of just looking at some of the screenshots that are on here,
I do like the publisher name though.
Yeah, like it's actually it's
Hooded House.
It's a Witcher thing apparently. That's wooded
Oh.
It's not wooded house, it's wooded horse. Hooded horse.
Hooded Horse, that's right.
Hooded horse. So it's something based on a Witcher thing apparently.
Okay.
I'm not too sure. I just read articles. Something about a hooded horse or some meme thing from Witcher apparently. Yeah.
Sounds about
Um,
right.
um, yeah, as you can sort of see, the level of detail when you get zoomed down is actually, this is realistic too. It's actually quite good down to this level too.
I was going to say, artistically and like graphically, it does look a little bit like The Witcher, in particularly the character models.
Yeah, you could probably say it's got a bit of um, a style to it that is medieval rather than straight up just sort of
Mm.
fantasy sort of stuff for sure. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, as I said, I'm only an hour or so into it. Enjoying what I've played so far. We'll definitely play more of it. It is in early access. I don't think there's been any indication of the plan for how long it will be in early access. Um, I don't even think. I think they've only done a couple of patches since it was released. Um,
It's only been out for like 3 weeks, so it's
yeah,
like
so
it probably doesn't even have a roadmap at this point.
no, I wouldn't have thought so. So it's got a couple of patches, but are relatively minor. Actually, some decent things in it. Um, the onboarding's a little bit sparse at the moment, as you can kind of imagine for an early access. They haven't got the tutorial stuff nailed down yet, so it's a little bit of trial and error in terms of what exactly some things do and how you sort of interact with them. But it's got a, like the so you bring in people to the housing into your area by building housing. You've got to get up a approval rating above a certain level to get people to attract people in. You then can you don't assign people to um, construction buildings, like buildings that produce things. You assign the entire family to it, which is an interesting concept. So you might have, so your population is not the number of people, it's your number of families you've got. So rather than having
Huh.
30 people, your population is 11 families, sort of thing, or 10 families, depending on sort of it is. So it's an interesting sort of way of just tweaking that sort of mechanic as well. So you might assign an entire family to the sawmill, for example. So you'll have adults and children working in all things, from
Mm.
that perspective. So it's an interesting
Like
trick.
8-year-olds fucking around with saws.
Yeah, that sort of stuff, exactly. So yeah, it's got a couple of differences to the standard mechanics too, which is yeah intriguing. My last game is Harold Halibut. Um, oh, by the way, Manalords is on Game Pass for PC and on Steam. It is currently Australian dollars pricing, $60. Yeah, it's a bit on the expensive side, but early access, I think it'll get there in terms of value for money. Will get there for sure.
Have
Um,
they said if they're going to actually up the price?
I have no idea. I don't think no. They haven't got a
I'll have
roadmap
a
of it.
quick look.
Sorry, the currently is
We
88.
might increase the price during early access.
Okay, so I might do that. So it's a lot of positive reviews so far. 88% of their nearly 35,000 reviews are positive. So it's got a lot of positive buzz to it. Harold Halibut, yeah, is another game that's actually on Game Pass, and also on Steam. Um, just check what the price is on Steam, so I don't know if $50 Australian, which is probably a little bit,
50?
yeah, 51, almost 51.
Fucking hell.
Which is a little bit on the expensive, I think. This game is basically it's a claymation animation, which is really really neat. Like the game looks really
Mm.
really really striking, and that was the main reason why it sort of appealed to me. It's just the looks of it were just really quite different from the other sort of game. Um, it's you play as Harold, which is the main character on the out cover, aren't there? This guy here. And it's basically an adventure game where you can, like, not point and click, but it's sort of side-scrolling, so far at least, side-scrolling adventure game where you're just moving around the environment, doing particular puzzles to solve particular little bits of the environment to do the next thing of the story, sort of thing. And also, you're even just doing basic things of just interact with items to do things. Um, yeah, visually, it's really really impressive. Um, Voice acting is very solid, if not brilliant, in a lot of cases. The dialogue is really really clever. It's pretty. It's a it's a German based game, but it's like an English sort of environment setting, I think. Um, so it's got some really good writing in it too. Voice acting is good. The actual acting is overall, like the cutscenes are really neat as well. Um, and the puzzle stuff is decent so far. Hasn't been particularly challenging. the biggest issue at the moment that I'm facing. I haven't looked at it, haven't played it for a little while yet. Get a sense of what it looks. That's the main room. That's the room you start in. It's just you can just see you walking around like this. There's a little bit of depth to some of the rooms. Some of the things you can sort of move back and forth and go behind other walls, and the wall was sort of how to describe it. The wall will then just collapse and then see what you're doing. So it's just how it sort of moves through the environment. So this is some of the characters you've got. These are all early game stuff. What these ones are.
All water is positive.
So yeah, it's just got, like I said, it's got a really neat look to it. And it's the biggest issue so far is a little bit of is more of a technical one, in that sometimes when you're moving between some of the environments, the game has to reload in that environment or that next set of environments or rooms.
Oh, it doesn't cache everything.
It doesn't seem to do a lot of that. So you'll sometimes have a bit where just after you've loaded into the next set of rooms, there's a bit of a delay before you can move him again, before you can start moving through that environment as it sort of reloads and whatever it has to do to sort of be able to keep going with it.
How are you finding the movement speed on the actual character itself? That's one of the sort of key criticisms I've heard, is that the movement speed on actually controlling Harold is really quite slow.
You can run with him, and running's fine. Walking is slow. Walking is slow, but you can run. You can basically run all the time. So walking is definitely slow, but yeah, running's fine. So you will find yourself just running everywhere because the walking is too slow. So yeah, there's a valid criticism, but the running gets around that. So yeah. But yeah, I'm actually enjoying it. It's really, as I said, it's really, really quite good. But yeah, I would looking at their Steam page now. They have not released. Came out on the 17th of April. And as far as I can tell, there's not been a single patch done to it. So not even patching it so far. Not patched it yet. Which is interesting because I think there are some technical issues there to iron out, I would have thought. So, but
what sort of technical issues are you talking?
Just as performance, where you get that weird delaying, that stuff. That's what
the lack of caching and all that sort of stuff.
Whether I don't know if that's a lack of caching, whether the game just has to load in, or I don't know what it
redraw
is,
everything,
redrawing or whatever it has to do before you can then start moving the character around. So there's a couple of weird.
I wonder if that's a choice or if that's just a limitation of whatever engine they're using.
Possible. I mean, it might not be something they can fix, but it is something I've noticed that you load in and go, I can't move just yet, and then after a couple of seconds I can then start moving again, sort of thing. So yeah, I'm paying on PC, so it is on Game Pass. Xbox is PC, so I've downloaded on the Xbox to see if that's different. So I'll probably be a bit of a brief play there to see if it's, better or whatever, but yeah. Other than that is me. So I've not.
What?
So 2 new ones, 3 existing ones, and Horizon Forbidden West is taking up most of my time, if not all of it.
It'll do that. I think it took me between 90 and 100 hours to knock that off when I finished it on the PlayStation.
Yeah, so I think I'm around the 65 to 70 mark, I think. Something like that.
Yeah.
So I think I'm probably based on, I'm using walkthroughs to make sure I don't miss a lot of stuff, so I'm using a walkthrough to know where I am. And I think I maybe got half a dozen or so main missions to go. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think probably the 90.
And it does sort of, it does notate all the sort of secret shit and pretty much everything. So as long as you're hitting the icons on the map.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And that's kind of what I'm doing now before I sort of progress the story more. Mind you, I'm like 20 levels above the story, so not as if the story's going to difficult. Yeah. The story mode is going to be hard to do. But yeah, I'm just doing all the icon ticking off at the moment. Is what I'm really doing. So,
have you got to the hardcore warrior tribe?
You have to give more names.
And it opens up like a sort of combat arena side activity.
Yeah, I've got that one, but I haven't done the arena thing yet. But I have opened up that. I've done the mission to open up that thing. Haven't done it yet. I probably never will.
That arena stuff gets fucked.
Yeah, I can imagine. Alrighty, that is me. So that means it is your turn.
Does that mean it's going to be May? Oh, that makes me laugh. I finished Banishers. I came across a couple of side quests or activities where you're not really indicated where to go.
Okay.
It's like, there was one where it's like, you need to get the root of a 5,000-year-old tree. what the fucking hell is it? Where the fuck is it? There's nothing that says here's where a 5,000-year-old tree is. Fortunately, like in playing through it, the other two things I needed to do for that side quest, I relatively knew where it was. With this fucking tree, I was like, what? But hooray for the internet. So I was able to make use of that. The sheer density and weight of a narrative and the individual moments or areas sort of makes it easy to forget some of the things that come up. Like there were characters you run into. It's like, oh, hey, it's good to see you again. I'm like, who the fuck are you? I haven't seen you for 15 hours. What the fuck? What do you mean? If I remember them at all. But yeah, there is a lot of story to this thing.
Yep.
It took me about 52 hours to finish it and get pretty much all the icons on the map. I basically did. I ended up with a world completion percentage of about 92%.
Okay.
There were some chests I didn't do and stuff like that, but most of the big stuff I did. The one other issue I've got with it, and it's a very hard problem to solve, is elements of exploration and side activities and stuff like that being locked behind story progress. Like you can't access certain things. Like a door will be closed, you can't open it and like go inside a building until you have to go to that location as part of a story mission or story quest.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's like, I want to get in. I can't get in. What the hell? And then you look and it's like, oh yeah, do this mission and the door will be open. I'm like, fuck's sake. So it's like, I get why it exists because you don't want idiots like me doing all of the side stuff all in the beginning and then have to slog through the main story and kind of get fed up with it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of annoying because I'm just like, I'm going to go explore. Let's look for treasure. And then you can't really look for treasure because you can't get in, open a door. And it's just a fucking wooden door. You can't punch it or nothing. I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people should play it. The combat, one of the most criticized areas of it is the combat, or at least in reviews. I didn't find the combat too bad. There isn't a large variety in enemy types that you run into, but it's not the sort of game where combat is the focus. There is a bit of like a very minor sort of soldier's element to it where you can parry and dodge and things like that, but it's not that bad in a way that it's hard. It's only once you're, like you said with Horizon, if you're over leveled, you are going to stomp out most of the things you're going to come across. I really think a lot of people should play this, and this is the sort of game, ironically enough, given that what we're going to talk about when we get to the news, this is kind of the sort of game that doesn't really exist as much. Unless you want to call Focus Interactive an indie-style developer in the same breath of as a Devolver.
Well, they were the publisher, not the developer. Don't know with the developer.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite games so far of this year. Jesus Christ, man, the fucking end of that thing. Like, I'm not going to give away story spoilers, but holy shit, am I glad we didn't record when we were meant to last week. Because it fucking broke me, man. I was a bit of a mess. So I ended up waiting about hour longer than I was going to, and then I did the recording to make up for the podcast, which, man, it's sad. Moving on. Hey, surprise, Balatro.
I'm still playing that. Okay, move on.
It's literally just to the point now. I'm just trying to finish higher difficulty tiers.
Yeah. And
it's literally just a RNG sort of game of getting the right jokers and everything to actually be able to get where you need to get.
Yep.
I'm getting close to 100 hours. Mike, that fucker's got 2 achievements different than I've got, including finishing the highest difficulty level. I'm like, you fuck. But, yeah. Anyway, Balatro's great. Anyway, Berserk Boy. I don't know how to feel about this thing other than kind of annoyed. Because, in essence, it's a retro-style action platformer, takes elements of Mega Man, mixes it with a bit of Metroid, lock-away abilities or lock pathways behind abilities. You're a kid, you're in some kind of futuristic military, and everyone thinks you're useless. you've got this friend who's like, I want to get data. And you're like, okay, cool, let's go. And then this flaming bird comes down and wants you to track down what's called berserk orbs. And they seem to be Dragon Balls without the wishes. But you have to yell a trigger phrase, which is, go berserk! So you're kind of a Power Ranger, but you only see it happen once. I don't know, man. This thing's kind of anime. It's also kind of Mega Man, but it's nowhere near as good as I think it should be. And I don't know what game I'm playing compared to what reviewers played.
Okay.
Because there was some really high praise in the reviews, like 8.5s, 9s, higher. I bailed on it. Like, the actual moment-to-moment stuff is actually really enjoyable to a point, but there's just a bunch of things, there's a bunch of elements about it that just are bothersome, or the little niggles on their own. But when you take it as part of the larger product or the larger whole, it really just drags the experience down. So, like, you can wall jump. Awesome. Wall jump from the start. Great. You don't need to have an ability to open up and unlock the ability to wall jump. But if you're standing next to a low platform and you go to jump on the platform, it just jumps into the wall of the platform.
Oh, okay.
Rather than to hop over. It's like, what the fuck? You've got the abilities that you're changing. You can change on the fly, but there's certain sections that require certain abilities. So, like, you sometimes just having to one ability, then 15 seconds later, switch again, and it just really interrupts the flow of things.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of it doesn't even seem to be particularly well explained, but they're also really quite different from each other. So if you wanted to try and make use of a new suit's ability in combat, you have to figure out what that combat ability actually is. There's some components, and there's some elements where it's not marked very well, or it's not really determined what can kill you, what can hurt you, what can't. Like, there's some bottomless pits that it's got like crosses or skulls on top of it. It's like, right, don't jump in there. You come across some pits that don't, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to jump down there, see if I can get a secret or something. And then you die. And it's, what the fuck? Like, there's just a lot of little elements that really mess it up. Like, and one of the most annoying ones is that in certain older platforming games, or the games that replicate the older platforming style, you can jump at a very last pixel of a platform almost off it and still make a jump.
Yep.
Not this one.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming to the edge and you hit the jump button, you don't quite time it right, you just run off the edge. So it's just a whole bunch of things that, it's just, I don't know what the fuck other people played or what the fuck I played. And it feels like the sort of game that I really should enjoy or I would really like. But I don't know, man. Like, it's a great idea, but I feel like the execution to me is really quite flawed. It's kind of like the Gravity Circuit from last year. That was another really really positively reviewed retro platformer that I just did not vibe with. So maybe I just don't like Mega Man. I don't know. Speaking of really positively reviewed games that I really just didn't dig, Time Melters. I found out about this game because it got 5 stars on Eurogamer. So I'm like, all right, that should be pretty good.
Okay, so it's been in 2 years of early access. Okay. And got 1.0 in February? Okay.
Yeah. I'd never heard of it until that Eurogamer article, review. It mixes tower defense with like action adventure style third person kind of like vibe. And there's a time control or rewind mechanic where when you rewind time, it's like you're recording a version of yourself.
Oh, okay.
So when you restart the timeline, a version of you is going forward and doing the things you did before you rewinded.
That's one of fairly standard rewind trope sort of thing. Yeah.
It's become really quite standard now. But if you try and do it on certain enemies, but you're too close to the enemies, they'll say, well, fuck that recording. I'm going after you instead. It's like, man, like, it's got an incredibly cheap look to it. Like, the text work in UI just feels really quite flimsy and cheap. and the character movement seems very rigid and stiff, like in its animation. Which, I mean, that's not the make or break of a game, but it just doesn't really give it the best of impressions first up. There's a sort of sluggishness to the movement and the aiming. I got stuck on a rock at some point, despite not even being seemingly in the graphical bounds of the rock. And the camera wasn't positioned in a way to see where I was stuck on this rock. So it was just like, what the fuck? And then, like, you shoot basically like magical spells. But then, because it's kind of a shooter, you have to reload. It's not like you just cock your arm like your Roman Reigns going for a Superman punch or anything. But, like, it's really quite slow and it lacks a bit of weight or impact to that shooting. And I really don't think I either enjoy, or didn't really enjoy, but I don't think I even fully understood the base level gameplay mechanics, like the time manipulation. Because, I mean, it explains it and says, look, if enemies see you, they'll ignore the past you and go after you instead. But like the bounds at which that is actually going to occur isn't 100% clear. Like, you don't get any more resources to engage with your abilities when you do the rewind and the copying and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes you'll see the version of you shooting what was an enemy there, and it's just the bullets are going over the heads and things like that. Oh, and there's a escort style, like, defense of characters.
Yeah, good.
Including, like, there's a challenge where...
Cardinal sin of the mission design, that one, yeah, basically.
Yep. There was a challenge after the first mission where there was a villager running away from a monster, and you needed to engage in your magical abilities to help save this villager. I couldn't get enough mana to actually make use of my abilities to save him. One time I sent him on a different path. Basically, he was fucking screwed from both ends. Like, but then there's this narrative in the background. When you're progressing through the campaign, you're progressing along this map, and you're going to different regions, different places, you save them, you move on to the next area. There's some ghostly figure that's following you that seemingly, once you move to the next area, that ghostly figure just raises the location you were at and just burns it to the ground.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, what the fuck's the narrative point in even me finishing these fucking villages or saving them if they're just going to be fucking cooked afterwards? I don't know, man. I don't know what people were seeing about this to be so effusively positive about it, because I bailed after an hour, like just shy of an hour, because I just was not enjoying interacting with it. Like, the mechanics are interesting, but either I just don't have the level of intelligence to really engage on that level and enjoy it, or it just isn't good and I'm playing something different than everyone else is. I don't even know. Something I was enjoying. It's going to be my new after work game, Rebel Transmute. It came out sort of mid-March, a search action game, otherwise known as Metroidvania. It really hammers that 16-bit aesthetic. It does so in a pretty cool way. It's not particularly easy, but it hasn't been the type of cuss out loud, really, really loud and really hard type of difficult either. You can build. You can have a build of abilities based on the different pickups you get, which is pretty neat. There's a little bit of simplicity to the traversal, but exploration is still really... I'm digging it. Like, it's just a pretty decent meat and potatoes sort of search action game. I need something to stop me from playing Pilatro after work, because fucking I play a lot of Pilatro, and god damn it, I need something else. So this is going to be that something else. Raw Metal, a stealth action game, takes stealth components, adds a beat 'em up sort of style of combat. It's got a fucking amazing look to it. The sound's pretty neat, sound design wise. It's fun moment to moment sneaking around, beating up guards and chasing loot, but there's a real lack of depth because the stealth is only useful to sneak up behind someone, grab them and smash them, and knocking off half the enemy's like life bar before you punch on.
Okay, yep.
There's no like stealth kill or anything like that. You get a couple of different tools, but it's like their immediate usefulness is sort of lacking, and they basically do the same thing. It's different versions of concussion grenade, noisemaker, just basically throw something at someone, distract them, run up, punch them. The combat elements are alright, but there's a weird window of the parry. Like there's a parry button that you push to like bat away and attack, and it's telegraphed by a red exclamation mark, like that triangle sort of thing, like danger. But that comes on the screen at weird times sometimes, and you think, oh, like, there's been plenty of times I pressed it and then I got hit. I'm like, I fucking did it. And because of that, you can get cooked in the most basic of encounters. Like I got run up on literally within 10 seconds of starting the first level, and because of that parry timing, I died. So it's rough, and like you can bank gear and currency, but then if you get beaten, you die, and you're booted back out to the main menu to start again. But it's not a roguelike. But it describes it's like start run. And so what the fuck even is this thing trying to be? You can spend currency to go back to the latest level you got to. So like if I got to level 2, I could spend some currency to get back to level 2. But then you have to bank currency. So if you finish the first level, go back, bank some shit, then redo level 1 over and over and over. I don't know what the go with this thing is. It's just unnecessarily harsh in a way that not even Souls games are. Or like that sort of Souls-like form. I had 2 really great bugs. I ran into 2 guards. One of them ended up behind a wall inexplicably, and I couldn't fight them. I had to punch mid-air, like just random air to hit them. So that was great. And then I was fighting someone. I was punching the guard a few times. When they were meant to hit the wall and do a bit of a wall slam to stun, they went into the wall.
No, stunning them.
Well, the best part is the enemies regain health fairly quickly if you don't hit them. You're scored in each encounter, so like every second that goes down, it's like no action, no action, no action. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm standing at the wall trying to punch on, and it knocks them back just enough where I can't do anything. So I'm just like, fuck this then, and just let them sit there and hit me and kill me. There's potential. Apparently, there's not much in the way of story. So when I've written here, there's potential to have an interesting story. Yeah, not really. But the brutality of the fail state and the fail structure lets down the game because you just get bogged in boring repetition of the first or second level over again. I hit the third level like twice. I can pretty consistently get to the second level if I don't run into timing issues on the parry, which can happen. They've the developers have put out a roadmap that suggests they're working on a couple of different linear style modes where instead of dying and being booted out to the main menu, you just keep going. When that hits, no idea. So I'm sort of curious about that. I haven't uninstalled it yet. I played it a bit more before we started recording. And there's a real potential, but man, they fuck up some of that potential in a way that's kind of sad. How about we talk about a game from Australia? Australia! And it's a first-person shooter where you're a bear and a dude. There's a leader of the bears called General Cuddles. So I think that's pretty great. 3-person team made this game. It's a first-person shooter. There's some bullet hellish elements with the sort of what the enemies are shooting. There's kind of a Ratchet and Clank vibe to it where you get some pretty interesting or weird weapons. You're killing enemies to upgrade those weapons. Platforming, and there's some off the beaten path, like really interesting secrets, and just some of the secrets and things you discover are really quite involved. Like, I had a subquest where this robot lady was like, I'm really thirsty. Go over there and get me a drink. And you do that 4 times because each time the drink machines died or out of stock. And there's literally a drink machine like 2 feet from her, and she goes, hey, try this one. So instead of giving her a can of oil, like oil drink, I gave her a can of salt water and she rusted. So I was like, fuck you, lady. Apparently there's some high on life to this as well. Like there's a verbosity to some of the characterization, like the bear that's part of... So basically, okay. Let's take half a step back. You start off playing the game as a famous space general. There is a situation that you need to go into hyperspace, and you're given a choice between a safe but boring hyperspace jump and a cool but dangerous jump. Can you guess which one I picked? At some point, that jump ends badly, and your DNA gets combined with the DNA of the bear that was in the box next to you, so now you have a bear in your head talking. So that's where the sort of high on life part comes in.
Okay, yep.
But it's actually really quite well delivered and quite entertaining, like from like written wise. It is. There's some really funny stuff, and like some, in particular, the side missions and the challenges you're doing, they're really quite entertaining, and there's a real sense of humor to it. And it's just really, this is just nuts, and it just adds a nice layer of discovery on top of what is really solid meat and potatoes, like really good, well designed first person shooter mechanics. I'm really digging that. And then I didn't write it down, but the last thing, Friday Night Fun is going to have a regular game for the foreseeable future, as I'm attempting to play through The Surge 2 for the first time. And at some point, I would like to have a death counter as a layer in OBS, so I can hit a button to count how many times I died. Because it's probably quite high at this point, because it is a Souls-like after all. But I'm really enjoying this. There's a part of me that wishes I had played this earlier.
Did you play the
it's good fun.
Did you play the Surge?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. This was on Surge 2 was on Game Pass for a while, and then it was mad cheap on Steam to get it and all the DLC. It was like $8 for everything.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, fuck it, and bought it. And it's just sat in my old games to replay folder in Steam for ages. I'm like, I'm going to play this. So I did. I've got some must listens, but we'll do that in the beginning and the end.
If we have time, yes.
If we have time. It's 3. Moving on.
Yep.
So yeah.
So
hey, Graham.
You've got Lightyear Frontier, but you're not got on your list for some reason. So that's cool. All right.
I forgot to put Lightyear Frontier on here. It's pretty good. Oh, I'm sad.
We'll get back to it at some point when it's got more stuff to do.
At least we don't have to listen to Piper for a while.
Yeah, true. Thankful for small mercies.
Yep.
Alrighty.
News it up, yo.
News it up. Let's see if I can make this news thing work.
That was me acting like a journalist. Quite effective, I think. Okay. We're not going to talk about everything news-wise that's happened in the last 3 weeks, but there have been 3 relatively different variations of what the fucking fuck in the video games industry. Let's start with the closures.
No, let's start with Helldivers.
Because they're...
Helldivers too.
Start with Helldivers, because that's just more stupid than anything. Sony decided that they were going to enact the enforcement of making people use a PSN account to play Helldivers on PC. Which that requirement hadn't been there since launch. Apparently there was some language on the Steam page that suggests, hey, have a PSN account, but no one had to use it. And it was sold in 144 odd countries that don't have access to PSN, and making a PSN account when you don't have it in your country is actually a violation of the terms of service.
Yeah,
so,
to go a bit further,
understandably,
just go a bit deeper. So the Helldivers 2 came out. It was a big, massive success, sort of a bit out of nowhere, it must be said. It is made
very out of nowhere.
It's made by Arrowhead Game Studios, published by PlayStation. And I believe, from what I've read and heard, PlayStation actually own the IP of the game, so it's not owned by Arrowhead. The game is obviously, because it's published by by Sony, sorry, they've had on the Steam store page that it requires a third-party account, namely a PSN account. But it wasn't working at launch, so they disabled the requirement. Technical issues, whatever, it wasn't working.
server load because they just did not expect like 500,000 people to want to play that game.
I guess that might have probably part of the equation. So then in early sort of I think about second or third of May or something like that, they announced, in fact I've got it right here, account linking update on the 3rd of May, which is a Friday. Good day to launch bad news on a Friday. That's what they normally do.
Yeah, that's what it's always done. Like, announce it on a Friday after everyone's closed and gone home so no one knows about it.
Yep, and the original post on the 3rd of May said, due to technical issues at the launch of Helldivers 2, we allowed linking requirements for Steam accounts to be placed to a PlayStation network account to be temporarily optional. That grace period would now expire. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values of safety and security provided on the PlayStation and PlayStation Studios games.
Fucked.
This is our main way to protect the players from griefing and abuse by enabling the banning of players that engage in that type of behaviour. It also allows these types of players that have been banned the right to appeal. There's nothing in that statement that's not technically true, but it's also entirely possible to be done without linking to a fucking PlayStation account.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, okay, maybe letter of the law, but definitely not spirit of the law because you can't come out and say, we want all these email addresses so we can send you a bunch of marketing shit.
Exactly, which is exactly what most people think it was all designed. As of May 6th, all new Helldivers 2 players on Steam will be required to connect their Steam account to a PlayStation Network account. Current players on Steam will be start to see the mandatory login from May 30th. So this was a good 4-week notice for that particular aspect of the whole thing. And will be required to have linked a Steam and PlayStation Network account by June the 4th. PlayStation Network accounts are free and easy to set up using this link to the particular thing. We understand that while this may be an inconvenience for some of you, this step will help us continue to build a community that they're all proud to be a part of. And that was actually signed from Sony Interactive Entertainment, not from Arrowhead. So that thing kicked off an absolute whirlwind of shit, basically. So
it was the shitstormiest of firestorms.
It was basically it. Everything just went berserk after that. And the biggest reaction to it was that the game got review bombed like you would not believe. We do have to have at some point...
To a degree that no other game has been review bombed.
Yeah, exactly. It was extreme.
200,000.
Yeah, so they went from basically overall positive of like 80% or something to overly negative.
Mixed.
We didn't overly negative. It went massive. It went down into the 20 or 30%.
Is that the most recent that are overly negative, but then overall it's mixed?
Overall it went bad because they had there's such volume of what they'd done. Just went from
that's a great balance.
Really positive down to negative. It was if you click on the you can actually get a graph of this thing. There's basically this thing where it goes. I can't show on screen sadly, but it goes.
Yeah.
So basically, what happened
is
someone
took that image and made it a cape as a cosmetic in the game.
Yeah,
and it got put in the game.
Now going to be put in the game. So, but before we get back to that, with the sort of the other side of it is that there was a lot of stuff going on. There was community managers on the Arrowhead side that were basically saying, "We can't do anything about it. This is Sony." Which I think is a little...
They also were like, yo, this negative bombardment of reviews actually lets us go back to Sony and go, see, this shit is fucked.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a lot of talk that there was a particular main community manager there was even an article written about him saying he nearly got fired because of it. But then I've read some things after the fact that
No, he did.
He did.
Or
get
someone
fired.
did.
Someone did, but I don't know if it's the same one or not. So it's a bit of misreporting there. I'm not sure that's quite the same person each time. But there was basically someone encouraged him to review bomb because it was the way they could use that volume of dissatisfaction to go back to Sony and say, well, but the thing that was probably really tipped into the scales of the ultimate reversal of this was Valve started to honour refunds for people wanting to be refund stuff, even though they've played way over the 2-hour limit of it. Because one thing that Sony decided, Steve mentioned at the top of the little segment, was that PSN is not available in all countries. I'm not really sure why. It just isn't. And and the requirement to have a PSN account you just simply couldn't make one. So they've sold this game on Steam.
No, you can, but it violates the terms of service.
Oh, you can't. You can't make one. Like the terms of service is broken. You can't do it. So you could do it by breaking the terms of service, but you ultimately shouldn't be doing it. So when that was sort of became obvious, and I'm not sure how the game was even released in that state, knowing that this was going to eventually happen. Another person.
Sony didn't give a fuck.
Maybe they didn't give a fuck. I don't know. They basically removed its game from sale in all those 170 odd countries that couldn't make a PSN account.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's been fully restored yet. I think it's still. I think some games have come back. I think some countries have actually been added to it again. So.
I read before we started recording that Ghost of Tsushima has been taken off sales and refunds for pre-orders being given on the Steam version for the exact same reason. In certain regions.
Yeah, which is odd because that game is primarily single player. It does have a multiplayer component, but they've made that a requirement again, which is just dumb.
Yeah, so who made Ghost of Tsushima again?
Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch. I was going to say Irrational. That wouldn't work. Sucker Punch was like, during all of this, they were like, hey, you don't need PSN to play Ghost of Tsushima.
But apparently you do.
Except for multiplayer.
Yeah, so that's another odd decision to make, to then remove that from a sale when they could just say it's optional. If you don't do it, you can't do this part of the game.
Yeah.
I don't see why they just can't do that. But anyway.
They pretty much have said that it's like it's only the Legends multiplayer mode that you need to log in for, but because of that there might be some. I wonder if there's something in Valve's TOS that's basically like if you have a third-party service that's required and you don't offer that third-party service in that country, you can't fucking sell it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they should just leave it to be sold and remove the option, put it back to optional. It's a very odd decision from a just purely business perspective. You're leaving money on the table by not selling those regions. Just seems bizarre to me.
Speaking of which, speaking of video games and money, we'll get to that.
But so eventually Sony basically walked it all back. And
after being confronted by fucking pitchforks and burning
basically,
tickets.
So they eventually walked it all back. In fact, we just go.
I was going to say, have you got the statement where they walk it back? Because that's some disingenuous fucking horse shit too.
Cool, absolutely. The whole thing was just sorry, God. So on that same update that they originally posted to say this thing was coming in a month's time, sort of thing. So it was basically 2 days later. So on the 5th of May, there's this post about account linking update was basically updated to be different wording. All this stuff's basically been. Must give them some credit. They haven't completely removed the original text to put strike through things, so you can actually still read it. That's why I'm planning to still read it. Helldivers fans, we have heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account link update. No fucking shit.
Yeah, feedback.
Feedback
is what they heard. Not the fucking deluge of fuck you motherfuckers.
The May 6 update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players for current players beginning May 30, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what is best for PC players. Fucking what? And your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support.
That's the part.
Can you support Helldivers 2? And we'll keep updated on future plans, which basically means we're going to try this again at some point in the future. We're going to try this again.
Yeah.
Maybe not so badly, but yeah. That thing, we're still learning.
There's a disingenuousness of it to say
best for PC.
We don't know what we're doing in PC games. Fuck you don't.
Fucking Jesus.
You've literally in the last 2 years put out ports of 5 or 6 of your big first party games?
Yeah, just bizarre.
Go fucking eat a dick if you're telling me you don't know about PC stuff.
Games, yeah. So if I go to, for example, I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West. If I go to that store page,
I don't think there's any linking.
It says it requires agreement to a third-party EULA. That's all it says.
Yeah.
Which is basically the...
I forgot. Ghost of Tsushima is also adding the PlayStation overlay. That's where the other PSN requirement is.
Oh, okay. So
you can get trophies as well as Steam achievements.
So the Ghost of Tsushima one says has got that requires third-party EULA thing, but also says requires third-party account, PlayStation Network, online multiplayer PlayStation overlay, supports linking to Steam. Now I'm going to do a very dangerous thing while I'm on this page and just jump into the view discussions. Just to see exactly...
Oh, they're not on the screen, so it's not as dangerous as it could be.
No, not really. What is it? Let's see. Don't worry, Ghost of Tsushima won't require PC. Well, it kind of does. Return the game I bought back. Sony, please remove... So this is literally within the last hour. Sony, please remove the PS requirement. And the thing that was like really egregious with what they did with the Helldivers was for what? How long has it been out for? 3 months? 2 months?
3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months. There's been no issue with that has got. Oh, if they had PSN, that wouldn't have happened. So
that was no way that was going to be the case.
That was just they just shot themselves in the foot so badly, and they just completely.
The only thing is, no one expected that thing to launch hot the way it did, which meant that the heat on the issues.
Yeah, ship out a pivot and just go, okay, we won't worry about it again. We're making shitloads of money anyway. Because we're making money on every sale, so yeah. Anyway.
No, man, we need those email addresses.
We need to
make PSN safe.
We need to boost our numbers, so we'll just use this to do it.
We didn't make PSN safe for all those Minecraft kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, remember that was why they didn't want to have crossplay with Minecraft.
Yeah, that was a bullshit thing. That's fucking Jim Ryan being an absolute fucking wanker. But anyway, yeah, people who
Graham Banks versus Jim Ryan in a cage.
People run these companies. They really don't have a fucking clue. They really don't.
There is a real disconnect between video game,
the consumers of
people, and money
the people that and the people that are running the companies just have no real link to what. It's bizarre. Anyway.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a sec too.
Yeah, so which we'll jump into. So the next part of this big. So that led to industry people being stupid things to even more people being stupid in the industry. So, and that is two major...
Well, the Sony thing was bookended by these fucking dumb business decisions.
Yeah, but the thing
the Take-Two announcement was before, and then the Microsoft announcement was after.
Yeah, so what is the Take-Two announcement?
So the Take-Two announcement is that Take-Two have shuttered both Roll7 and the developer behind Kerbal Space Program 2, who I have once again forgotten. It is... There it is. Intercept Games.
Intercept Games. Close.
So Roll7, the team behind the Oli Oli series, including Oli Oli World that came out 2022, and Rollerdrome that came out in 2022 as well, and was one of my favorite games of that year. That's a real sad state of affairs, because that team... I'm Not a Hero. Not a Hero was a great little game that Roll7 did. Devolver put that out, but still. So that was the Take-Two ones. And then after the Take-Two ones happened, after the Sony bullshit happened, Microsoft must have been like, yo, there's heat on Sony. Let's announce this now. That's obviously not the way that went, but Microsoft announced that they were closing 4 studios. Let's see if I can remember them. Nope. You want to bring that table up?
All right, we'll go to this.
Because the Microsoft ones are on there. There we go. Tango Gameworks, Arcane Austin, Alpha Dog Games, and there's a different studio that has been absorbed into Bethesda Online Games. I can't remember that fourth. I was going to try and click on that link to gamesindustry.biz, but then I realized I'm on a call, so I can't click it. So Tango Gameworks, team behind Evil Within and Evil Within 2, Ghostwire Tokyo, and Hi-Fi Rush. And Arcane Austin, the team behind Dishonored, Prey, the Prey reboot, and Redfall. Deathloop was Arcane Leon. So in order to seemingly cut costs and focus on high-impact games, according to Matt Booty, who apparently was in a staff meeting or something like that, said we're spread too thin.
Yeah, just in an email to staff.
So, yeah. A whole lot of, from a pure numbers perspective, it doesn't look as bad. But we're talking about two really good studios with really interesting grounding.
Well, Take-Two
and who have a decent catalogue of games.
Take-Two was 600 people, so yeah, it is a big number.
Yeah.
That's way more than what this recent Xbox
Absolutely.
one is. But what this led to is a conversation we had yesterday, in that
we should have recorded.
We probably should have recorded because we're essentially going to repeat it in parts. Is that this is just the most recent a bloody long line or long list of studio closures, which is what we've currently got on screen at the moment. We're on a website that's actually called, if you search for...
It used to be videogamelayoffs.com.
Okay.
So that website was started either last year or 2022 to basically keep track of all of the layoffs in the video game industry because they were fucking numerous.
Yes. And this website sort of covers 2022, 2023, and 2024, including if you could click on the various... click on tables and stuff. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, they graph shit out and
graph shit out and how many
there's a rough count of nearly 30,000 people.
Yeah, 30,000 people. Large percentage of that is in the US, as you kind of imagine. What else? I'm just trying to, so basically the numbers are just massive, and that's sort of what we sort of then decided. Well, if we decided to talk about just this one, we'd have factor why we didn't talk about Unity getting rid of, was that 1,800 or something?
1,500 or whatever it was.
1,500 after their screw up recently, about their doing the 1,800 of theirs was 1,800. Twitch laid off 500 people, which is part of Amazon. So you've got these massive companies.
Sony was about 900.
Sony was 900 or so when they did something around because their PSVR thing hasn't quite landed as well as they would have wanted it to, apparently, so they had to get rid of 900 people around that. And I think we just wanted to talk about, not necessarily this particular layoffs, because that's its own discussion. There is discussion to have there for sure, because it implies if they're closing down Tango Works, which made the very highly critical and highly formidable Towns and Purposes successful Hi-Fi Rush, if that being as successful as it was by what we've, anecdotally what we've heard about, if they can't be successful and stay open or stay around, there's probably a lot of things that are going to go around the pear shape. So that sort of indicates to us that there's something obviously fucked with this industry.
Yeah, the level of expectations, salations, and things like that.
Yeah, it's expectation management. It's the scale of these games. It's the amount of money that they have to put into making these games that you go, well, that's an insane amount of money. Because I think you were telling me yesterday that, was it Spider-Man 2?
Spider-Man 2 was between 315 and 350 million in development.
Like, that is just...
to the point where, in order to recoup costs, they needed to sell 7.2 million copies. Now, they sold 10. Of course they were fucking going to sell 10.
They're going to sell a lot because that game is what it is.
But how much profit is there, and what the fuck did they spend that 350 million on?
And what do they do with the money if they then couldn't use the $350 million we vaguely, back in the mass calculation we did yesterday, couldn't keep the 900 people from the PSVR stuff open or closed. So there's a lot of big, massive companies in this space. Obviously, Microsoft is the biggest because it's a fucking something the other, a $3 trillion company. So obviously it's making a shitload of money. I mean, Sony's not that big, but it's still a fucking big company. So and they're making money left over. Across the board, they're making massive money. Like Xbox itself is not making the most money because the company's making a shitload of money. Xbox not so much. Although their revenue is up year over year because of other factors that are part of it. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge, I believe, that the Sony division or the gaming division of Sony is its biggest earner or biggest.
I think it's its only profitable division.
I think their lens stuff is doing really well.
What?
They make camera gear, not accessories.
Okay.
Their camera stuff is really good.
I was going to say their consumer electronics haven't been doing shit for years.
No, but they're and their TVs and stuff are still doing pretty decent as well. So, as I said, that company's making money. Take-Two, fuck me, how much money do they make from fucking GTA? That they can just, they're making $1 billion a year or whatever it is. So these companies are massive and making shitloads of money. That's out there in public. But they still think they have to get rid of these studios, and that's what's so baffling to me. is why some B counter says this game didn't hit this point on a graph. Therefore, the only fix we've got for that issue is to get rid of everybody who worked there.
Fuck the studio off.
Is to get this just mind boggles me to me.
Well, that was, remember, like, and we mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about it. Like, how many times has a game come out from Square and they've gone, it didn't meet expectations? It reportedly sold between 5 and 7 million copies.
Yeah.
It didn't meet expectations. Well, what the fucking fuck were your expectations?
Yeah, if your expectations are so high, then why the hell? Yeah, like if the expectations are high, then that's not the game's problem. That's your problem for setting too high expectations.
And like,
but maybe that's the
Final Fantasy.
But maybe that's the expectation needed to break even. We don't know. And that's part of it too. And that sort of goes back to another conversation. Sort of part of our conversation from yesterday was the gaming industry, and not that it's alone in this particular aspect, is pretty damn secretive about stuff. Like the only reason we know about the $350 million was it was part of the Activision.
The discovery stuff for Sony's lawsuit against Microsoft for monopolization,
which they've ultimately lost. They lost, well, not lost, but then didn't succeed in it.
Yeah.
So that's how much money they spent on it. But other than that sort of leaked stuff, we never very rarely hear about what games actually cost to make. Because if you don't know what a game costs to make, someone saying it didn't meet expectations, therefore we have to do X and Y, Z to the studio. There's this massive disconnect.
What the fuck were the expectations?
Yeah, there's this massive disconnect. So maybe what they're saying is 100% accurate. It costs $150 million to make it because that's what you gamers want these days is $150 million games, and you didn't buy it enough, so you didn't make enough money to make it back. Is that really what it? I don't know. So.
And that was like you mentioned yesterday. Obviously, the film industry, like film budgets are often really well known beforehand.
Yeah.
The extent to which marketing budgets are part of the film's budget, that part's not as well known.
Not as well known as a part of the whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah. But box office reporting is very well known.
Yeah, like it's literally down to the freaking dollars
video games. Video games, when they hit big, always like to tout. Like Grand Theft Auto did it plenty. The biggest financial day of any entertainment product ever. What was the money take? What's the budget on this? Yeah. And it makes these sorts of conversations really difficult to have with any sort of clarity and any sort of critical eye, because it's like, what the fuck were Square's expectations for the Avengers or for the Tomb Raider reboots or any of the other Western developed games that Square put out? And they're like, hey, guess what? Didn't do what we wanted it to. What the fuck did you think it was going to do?
Yeah, exactly. And the other part of it... Yeah, sorry, you go.
I was going to, I don't know if you were about to say this, but and it's what I mentioned when I talked about Banishes, is that idea of a tier of games that is now completely vanished from the industry, is that sort of B tier. It's not a massive AAA game coming from a massive publisher, but it's also not an indie game. Like Banishes sort of fit that role. Hi-Fi Rush fits that role. I mean, it comes from Tango, which is Microsoft, so it's a massive fucking publisher and massive to really big name, but it still fits that tier or that rough tier, because obviously B grade is not about the quality, it's about the financial input, blah, 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 blah. But like that used to be an entire segment of the Xbox generation, the Xbox/PS2 generation, the 360, PS3 generation. It started falling away pretty hard during the PS4, Xbox One generation. And now in the modern space, it's either fucking massive or indie. There's no in between.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you get fucking massive indie like Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. But that's an exception.
But Baldur's Gate 3 is a fucking aberration.
Yeah, but also the fact if that had failed instead, luckily they didn't. They landed it well. Yeah. But if it didn't land well, maybe that's the other advantage of having a 5-year early access development cycle, I guess. But they weren't lucky. I think they planned that particularly well. But like that method of getting a game out is 5 years of early access, actual release. Like that's rare. Like that doesn't normally succeed. That's not normal. But the thing that sort of like even the other aspect of the industry at the moment is the game is the live service game, and that's the other part of it too. So we've recently had Suicide Squad land with an absolute thud.
Yep.
We've had that.
Warner Brothers reported a $200 million loss.
$200 million loss because of that game not succeeding. But
not entirely just because of that game, but that was a big symptom.
A big part of it. But the thing that is a big concern, like that same company, Warner Brothers, which put out Suicide Squad, put out Hogwarts Legacy. Now, that's a game that you and I didn't play, had no interest in playing it. But that game was a
Fuck J.K. Rowling.
But that was a critical success. That made a shitload of money for them. But I'm trying to find the article to get the actual headline. I'm not struggling to find it at the moment. But there was actually an article that said, even though Hogwarts Legacy was really, really successful, we're going to do more games of a service. That's essentially the paraphrasing of the headline was. Because
I was reading an article on Eurogamer when I was having breakfast.
I'm going to finish that before I go further. Because the bean counters, not going to use that term, productively. A live service game, if it hits, has a massively long fucking tail. It's hard. And has a long tail that goes on for years and years and years, all things being equal. Whereas a single player game,
Dota.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas a single player game like Hogwarts Legacy, it lands as a big spike in that particular year or maybe year and a bit, and then it tails off and that's it.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see in a really capitalism, that's what it is. You can see why a live service game is more appealing to companies like that because it has that ability to make its money over in a spike, but then really have a long freaking tail. And that's.
But you look at the number of bodies of the live service games that have tried getting into that space.
Yeah.
It is a fucking graveyard. And like the Eurogamer had an article where, and I know this is a I guess angle that you don't like, but it was basically, why does Microsoft keep repeating the same mistakes of the last 10 years? Which I get where you're coming from on that.
That's not really where I'm coming from. My concern is that every time this happens, Microsoft closes a studio, or anybody's closes a studio, the discussion is, the problem is not, they're a symptom of the industry's problem.
Yeah.
So we focus on what that studio did or didn't do, or whatever the developer or publisher should say. Whereas it should be, wait a second, that's fucked. Why did that happen as an industry thing?
Yeah.
So you focus on one.
And why is it continuing to happen?
Why is it continuing happening? So why wasn't?
Yeah.
Like, there's been articles I've seen on headlines saying Phil Spencer should be sacked. Maybe he should be. I don't know. I've literally seen people saying he should be sacked because of what's happened. Well, if that's the case, why are we not having the same discussion around Jim Ryan being sacked from Sony?
Herman Holst.
People from Take-Two. Whoever runs the guy who runs Embracer, whose name escapes me at the moment. Why isn't he being talked about? So that's my problem with that, is it's focusing on one aspect of it, whereas that's a symptom of an industry that's fucked. And I think that's the problem. So we get focused on one aspect of it, whereas we need to have a bigger discussion about the industry as a whole to be able to go, well, wait a second, why is this continually happening?
The live service thing that you talked about, they mentioned that in that Eurogamer article where they took Fable, which, like you mentioned, new Fable comes out, it's successful. It's successful for 6 months to a year as that single player thing, and then there's no continuance. They tried turning Fable into a live service game with, Fable Legends? And that motherfucker fell on its fucking ass so hard it's not even funny. Because how many live service games are you expecting people to keep up with? Like, Sony said Sony was working on fucking 15 at a point.
Yeah, like they've said they're pivoting to live service games. Like they were having their main, single player.
They've canned like 6 of them.
They canned half of them, which is good. That sounds good. But what does that mean for those? Does that mean for those studios? Do they mean they have nothing to do with it? Therefore, they're out there, they're on their ass. I don't know what it means.
But there's also this industry sometimes gets so fixated on chasing the hot new trend that when that trend does not take off in the way that it needs to for any level of investment to actually be worthwhile, everything gets fucked. And it's just like, how can we make more? And it's never just, okay, you've got a decent amount of profit. You're not making the most money, but you're making some profit. You're continually putting out things that are well-regarded, i.e. Tango. I mean, Tango had Ghostwire Tokyo. That wasn't the best thing, but they put out relatively solid and relatively well-performing games. How the fuck does that end up closing?
Exactly.
And that's where that missing beat here. And I don't know, is this symptomatic of when the actual THQ went out of business? That was the biggest B tier publisher really at the time.
Yeah.
They went out of business, and then now it's just like, fuck it, massive AAA, like blockbuster Marvel style AAA or indie. That's it.
Yeah.
And like it just portends bad thing. And like we talked about again yesterday, the pandemic and the pandemic didn't fuck this in the way the pandemic fucked other entertainment avenues and things like that, where supply was hard, all that sort of stuff. The pandemic was fucked because companies realized that people were staying home more often because you couldn't leave the house and playing games. So they're like, let's capitalize on this. Fucking banked massive money, i.e. Embracer, picking up fucking everything.
Yeah.
Then the pandemic subsides. It's not done because people are still getting COVID. The pandemic subsides. People can no longer just stay home and play video games. And then these companies are left holding the bag for a shit ton of money, or out of a shit ton of money, going, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Because like they didn't recognize that was a bubble that was going to burst.
Yeah.
I mean, you start talking like, and this is what you mentioned yesterday, like when we talked about on Saturday. Like it's that idea of this literally boils down to you were talking much more about economic theory and much more of a criticism of capitalism as a model and things like that.
Yeah, and
when the fuck is enough?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because all of these studio closures from everybody, not just Microsoft, not just Take-Two, not just Sony, everybody who closes a studio, they are doing it because that particular thing didn't make enough money. That's very basic, finance 101. Didn't make money to cover its costs, therefore you can't do it. If you look at that particular thing in isolation, if it's part of a massive company that itself made fucking shitload of money, then that's obviously that company says, well, that didn't do so well, we're just going to get rid of that bit. We'll keep this bit over here because we've not lost a game to anyone doing it to that bit. But then that's capitalism, that's what it's about. But what was so frustrating is that you see, like that game, by all accounts, was successful, but it obviously wasn't successful enough.
What is successful enough in video games these days?
Did it make no money? Did it make 5% profit? Did it make 10%? Was it meant to make 50 and make 35? What was the expectation around it? As to now that
or how much Game Pass growth did it drive?
Yeah, exactly. Because now the metrics are different from all of them. All of them, they're all playing a different game now. That's the other part of it too. So yeah, this big list we're seeing, and we'll put a link to it in the show notes so people can get access to what we're looking at. But it's just a list of over the last 2.5 years or so of studio closing. The volume of closes. Now the volume, like there's one or two, like there's one that says about 5. Okay, that's not a big massive. That's probably one independent studio closing because it hasn't got enough money.
Yeah.
But the thing that's sort of leading to that. That's why even indies aren't safe from this necessarily, because their biggest issue is potentially trying to find a publisher that can publish their game, because self-publishing is not particularly easy. So if a game can't find a publisher, they're going, shit. We might have the best game. We might have a game that's absolute surefire hit. Not that any game is, but we can't find a publisher to help get it on the platforms that are out there. The other part of this that's interesting too, is I was listening to another YouTuber the other day about this, is that all of these companies are fighting for your time.
Yep.
When I say all of the companies, I'm talking Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, many other streaming services. There's a shitload of them out there now.
Stan, YouTube, Hulu,
the whole lot of them. They're all fighting.
Peacock.
They're all fighting for your time, because that's what's valuable to them, is your time in their ecosystem. So that's another thing that's part of this too, and that's the other part of it, sort of part of what you're saying about the pandemic, because everyone was basically stuck at home. Streaming services went up the wazoo in terms of their subscriber bases. Game play time, collective term, went up because people were stuck at home. Went up because of it. Probably movie watching went up because of it, because they were going to leave things that you can only do when you're at home. all that stuff started to spike because of no one could leave home. That's now gone.
But remember,
when
when we're talking about fucking Warner Brothers shelves an $80 million Batwoman movie as a tax write-off, the fucking thing was finished.
It was finished, exactly.
And that fucking, what is it, Coyote versus Acme, which sounded fucking interesting. They shelved that too. Yeah. And they were going to shelve a Batman animated series. They just licensed that to Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's not just video games that gets affected by this.
Yeah.
But video games feels it in a lot harder fashion because of the nature of the business.
Yeah.
Now, the streaming model and the way in which companies are trying to hit the streaming model, maybe that was chasing a false balloon of some kind, or chasing maybe something that wasn't to be chased.
Yeah,
exactly. But VR, something not to be chased. Fucking motion control, not to be chased. Apparently, and I don't want to keep coming back to Microsoft. Microsoft's putting fuck tons of money into AI. If that doesn't hit,
yeah, that will probably hit because AI is everywhere.
That will hit a lot better than what VR did.
Yeah, well, they went in VR. That's the thing. Sony put all their money
in AR.
They weren't even really in that. They jumped that a while back. But the thing that was like this dive into like the PSVR 2, like that's not really been a success.
That was misguided.
That was not really needed. But
that was a bad call from the start.
Yeah, but as a result of that, they've basically got rid of 900 people as a part of that not really being successful as it was.
Which closed London studio, which was behind Getaway and a few other bigger games.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a part of me that just like wishes the industry would stop chasing fucking stupid trends and people would just go, this is successful, fantastic. And like Jeff Gerstmann's talked about it a couple times with the way his leaving of Giant Bomb. Every time that was sold, it's like, okay, how much growth are you hitting? We need to grow. Where at some point you've grown to every person who's going to potentially want or be interested in it.
The market is finite, basically.
Yeah, there's only a finite number of people. You're not going to get fucking 18,000 people in a village in fucking Mongolia.
Yeah.
Like, recognize that and go, yo, we're achieving success metrics. We are making some semblance of money. Kevin Smith used to talk about, I at least don't lose studios money. I will always have a job. In this environment, I don't think Kevin Smith would be able to keep a job just by not losing money.
No, because he'd have to be making money over and over and over again to maintain that. Whereas it should just be as long as, like, the business should be, does it cover its costs? That should be it. Does it make a bit of profit? Great, because you can put that back into the company, all things being equal. But
the second a company's public is the second a company's fucked.
Yeah, because that's about the capitalism stuff from before, because all they're driving is just driving shareholder growth. That's all they're driving for. Which on the surface isn't necessarily a problem per se, but it's when you're trying to get it again and again and again and again for the same thing, which has got a finite level to it anyway. You can't expect it to keep growing and growing and growing, and that's what's so frustrating. You just go, what? What exactly do you think this is going to do? It has to eventually plateau out. It just has to.
Yeah.
But if that plateau means you're still making a 15% profit,
15,
awesome.
20%, yeah.
That should be enough to fucking keep going. And it just sometimes it just isn't. And all of these companies,
think about how
are all doing the same thing.
I was just thinking about how few studios seemingly closed in the wake of the MMO boom. How everyone was trying to do an MMO. Some studios closed, absolutely. But it was a result of chasing the latest trend. MOBAs, Blizzard put out Heroes of the Storm. That didn't last. Like, there's the sheer, and like live service. Like, it's just, hey, let's fucking chase the thing. I don't know, man. It gets to be fucking a bummer and fucking depressing. So it's just like, okay, it's frustrating. But if you look at 2024 so far as notable releases, there's only been a couple of notable releases in the AAA space.
Yeah.
all of the most interesting and best shit has come from independents.
Yeah. But that's
like
not,
even
that's,
Final Fantasy, that's what, one of 5 AAA big titles that came out.
But the independent space is not the savior for this. It can't be.
No, fuck no.
So
it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. So that's like saying that's great. Like that is correctly, that's true. It doesn't kind of solve the problem, quote unquote. So.
Or maybe it does, and it just democratizes video games, and eventually the AAA space just goes poof.
Yeah, maybe.
And ceases to exist.
But I think the thing that, like, from what we can do as consumers is just buy what you fucking like. Just buy the stuff.
I do.
Just buy the stuff you like, play the stuff you like, because you can't actually control what a Microsoft do with their studios or what a Sony does with their studios. All you can do is vote with your wallet, but that's probably not even really enough to do at some point. So
yeah.
But
anyway,
I'm sure at some point we'll come back to this story because it's probably going to happen. We'll probably have this conversation this time next year and go, well, here we are again. Six other studios have been closed, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
fuck this. This is depressing. Go to the beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end because we've got some games to talk about. I've never got to find the beginning.
Find the button.
I want that button.
Oh, man, you missed all my great dancing. You were too busy looking at the dog or something.
No, I'm just trying to get this sorted out so we can...
So, we have come up with a bit of a system to have a different way of looking at the upcoming games of a certain month.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, a whole hell of a lot of coming from me to do so. Not even remotely. Graham's busted his ass to put this shit together. I'm just the chucklehead who types some numbers in. So, what we have is a way of looking at the upcoming games of May. Some of these are already out, because obviously we're at the 13th of May.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean these games aren't noteworthy or aren't worth paying attention to. So, first up, you've got, I'm assuming this is you, because I don't think I put it, Undead Inc.
Yeah, so just to go back, so this is something that we're trying to help ourselves by not having to go and find 6,000 freaking articles that tells us what games are coming out in particular months.
Or just look at Wikipedia.
We'll just look at Wikipedia. We're just finding games that we care about and just putting on this list, and when they come up to be discussed, we can discuss them. So this is so I'm not going to go through all these games necessarily in quick order, but so Undead Inc. is, it's a game, like a simulation game of some sort that I found. Some of these games are actually out because, as Steve says, we're into May by a fair bit.
Is this like a Fallout Shelter?
I sort of like that sort of game, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
This is one you put on this list.
Yep. A mountain climbing adventure.
Let's just go to the games that are actually coming out soon. So we've got.
Yep. That's out. That's out.
Oh, okay.
That's been delayed.
That's been delayed. So that's interesting. So these guys put out a very... Did you read the press release for this delay?
No, all I read was it's been delayed because of Hades 2.
Yeah, I need to read that. It's really bloody funny. It's actually one of the better ones I've seen. Now I'm just going to see if I can find it to you. So I'll keep coming down. So we've got Braid. I don't know why Braid's on there twice. I have to figure out what that's big.
Yeah, I don't know why Braid's on there twice. We're really excited for Braid, you guys.
We've got it on there twice. Talk about Ghost of Tsushima while I find this article. This thing I was looking for.
So, Ghost of Tsushima, just the port to PC of the PlayStation 4/PlayStation 5 game. I never played it on PlayStation.
No.
I'm close to just getting my PlayStation and trying to fit it on this desk so I can play it on this nice fancy monitor. Because I just like playing games at my desk, but I've got way too many games on PC to try and squeeze that in. But yeah, all the sort of PC bells and whistles. I think Nixies is doing the PC port, and they've done almost all of Sony's PlayStation ports to PC, and it's gone really, really well for them. So that, I thought, that's out this week. It'll be out sort of Thursday, Friday, our time.
Yep.
There is, like I said, some PSN stuff tied to it. You get a couple of little cosmetic items for linking your PlayStation account.
And that's what Sony should have done for Helldivers. link your
Yeah.
account, and we'll give you some shit to make it worthwhile. But yeah. I found that release. I'll come back to it in a moment. So Steam and Cinder, that looks really neat. That looks a really neat little.
Gestalt, Steam and Cinder. I think I played the demo for this on a Friday night show.
Okay. Yeah.
Sort of Metroidvania style. This looks really, really cool. I think this is a game you actually might like.
I think Paper Trail looks really neat as well. It's out in a couple of weeks. Xenoblade Saga's Hellblade 2. I'm intrigued by this. I probably won't be getting it, but I'm intrigued to see how it lands. And maybe
I'm not sold on it, to be honest.
I'm not sold on it, but I like the visuals of it. Are very striking, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Not sure it's a game I'll be playing necessarily. The World of Goo 2 is getting a release on Switch with an unknown release on other platforms. That's coming out in late May. This is a game I saw recently, Duck Detective, The Secret Salami. That just looks really, really cool.
Yeah, it does.
It looks just really neat. I think you added the Paper Mario game, The Thousand Year Door.
I did.
That's out. A bunch of games out on the 23rd there, actually. World of Goo 2.
Yeah, for as much as there's been talk about May being really quite quiet game release-wise, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out. Like this.
Yeah, this is
Rack and Slay.
Slay's a great name.
It's a great fucking name.
Yeah.
It might be maybe the game I'm most looking forward to this month.
Okay, fair enough. Yep.
Looks cool. Capes is basically a superhero XCOM
That's right.
done better than Marvel Midnight Suns.
Yeah, that looks quite interesting, that one. Oh, an Australian company.
And also Australian developed.
Didn't realise that. Cool. Now that's it. Vampire Survivors Operation Guns is a new game, isn't it? Not a DLC.
It's DLC.
Oh, it's DLC. Okay.
And it's already out. I don't know why it's got that date on it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay.
This is what happens when you crowdsource shit.
Yeah.
Nine Souls looks cool.
Did you add this one?
I added F124 because I thought you might be interested in it.
Oh, fuck no. I have no interest in it. Don't add games for me.
Really?
I'll find them. Yeah. What is that not for?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, above that is Sulaco, which is another first-person shooter on the GZ Doom engine.
Oh, okay.
And it looks really cool.
Yep. So, this is the release, sort of the announcement release from the Evil Empire developers of the Rogue Prince of Persia about their not particularly long delay. Alright, so it's all been a crazy week for us, all starting with a little game called Hades 2 released. You might have heard of it. Seeing as everyone and their mum is...
What's that?
Seeing as everyone and their mum is playing that game, including our entire team and their mums, we've decided to let people play, have their fun with before releasing the Rogue Prince of Persia game. We're still releasing in May, and we'll be back with a precise date on Monday. So it's not going to be a big delay. But yeah, I just found that bit. Everyone's playing it and their mums, and we're playing it and our mums are also playing it. I just think it was a really...
Yeah, that's a good line. I like that.
It's just a good way of announcing a delay other than the regular corporate speak you normally get when delays happen. So, yeah, just want to shout out that delay announcement as being a better than most delay announcement. So, yeah, they've still got day one patch coming out, which allows them to a bit more time to get that nailed down. But yeah, they're still having a release in May. But yeah, so I thought that was good to highlight that bit of fun that they did with that. So, all right, I think we have to close it up. It's now been going for how long? Have we been going for? An hour and a half. I'm getting hungry, so let's wrap this one up.
I am very, very quickly.
All right, go for it quickly.
3 must listens. Ingested, The Tide of Death and Fractured Dreams. Idola, Eidola, with an album called Eviscerate, but it's nowhere near as heavy or brutal as that name would suggest. And Hot Water Music with their new album called Vows. I think you might like Hot Water Music, maybe. Sort of like a punky sort of vibe to it. Not my usual brrr. 3 very, very good and very, very different pieces of music that I think are must-listens for people. I will likely have 2 other must-listens for the next podcast. I just haven't listened to them enough yet. But the darkness behind Graham would suggest that it's time for this shit to end. I mean, it's also gotten dark around here, but that's kind of because we're getting into winter, y'all. And winter in Tasmania means 6 hours of light.
That also means
the opposite of Norway.
It's also because I've got a new camera. which we both got.
Yes.
We both got the same new camera, the Elgato.
Mm.
Was it Face, whatever it's called, Mark II, whatever it is.
Facecam Mark II.
It is getting a lot more of my crap behind me, as you can see. I've got shit I'm dealing with, but it's also it's more susceptible to low light than the other camera that was actually pretty.
It doesn't have its own light source.
Yeah, so it's I'm gonna have to probably find some lights or something.
I'm thinking about getting a key light.
I might do something like that. I think I'm gonna have to do something like that to light my face a bit more.
Elgato's got a key light mini for like $100.
Yeah, I'll probably look at doing something like that at some point. So yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Alrighty.
So next week there will be some sort of video content. And then Friday, more Friday Night Fun, where I will continue to play The Surge 2 and some other things. And then in 2 weeks' time, all things being equal, we'll be back for another episode of the Should I Play This Game podcast. The 300th episode spectacular! Which will be like every other episode.
Exactly.
Unless we somehow manage to convince Mike and Paul to come back for an episode.
Yeah, unlikely.
Hey, Mike, talk about Destiny for an hour and a half. Okay, bro. It's pretty good, eh? You shoot things and they blow up, eh? Moving on. I got nothing. Graham?
All right, cool. I've got nothing either. Bye.
We're going to say peace out. Have fun. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.